Welcome to Sew It With Dye and my Janome MC6700 machine that I have on loan from Janome UK. Today I am going to focus on the buttonhole foot. Now the machine itself has, I think it's 9 different buttonhole settings. All but one use the buttonhole foot. The other one is when you want a buttonhole that is longer than the largest button that the foot will accept. So that uses a different process slightly. However, this video is more about the foot than the different buttonhole settings, because the foot is slightly different to those that I've used with other machines, Janome and otherwise. And it comes in 2 parts. So we have the buttonhole foot, which is very similar to those with my older machine and other brands, but it also comes with the buttonhole plate. I'm going to move on to that in just a second. So quite common to buttonhole feet. At the front here, there are horizontal red lines and vertical red lines, and they need to match to where you want your buttonhole to start. So you would match, for example, if we were doing a vertical buttonhole, the vertical red line would be on the center front line, and the horizontal lines would be where you actually begin sewing. So that's a really good guide to where to start the buttonhole from. The other thing that's intriguing with this particular buttonhole foot is, as well as obviously being able to pull out pull out and put a button into that space to set the length of your buttonhole. If you do a practice buttonhole and you feel that you want the final one to be slightly shorter or slightly longer, you can adjust the length. So we've got shorter and longer here. Just by toggling that button on the end, you can adjust the length of the buttonhole, which I find really, really useful. It attaches to the machine like most other buttonhole clip-on feet. However, before I do that, if I bring in this plate. Now this plate, I'll show you how it fits in just a second. However, this is what actually sits against the plate of the sewing machine. And the feed dogs actually work against this area here. And the feed dogs actually feed the plate through the sewing machine. Whereas on all the other buttonhole feet I've used, the feed dogs feed the fabric. And what this is good for, or what's good about it, is that it really helps when you are working with thick fabric, perhaps starting a horizontal buttonhole where you're using a tweed, something thick, and the foot, it doesn't lie flat. And when the foot doesn't lie flat, the buttonhole isn't going to start correctly, and you don't always get the correct length. And also, if you're making a buttonhole near to a seam, this whole thing helps to stabilize the buttonhole foot to get a far more precise buttonhole. And it's very easy to put together. This piece here fits into the hole in there. And now this acts as one piece. Clip it onto the machine and lower the buttonhole lever. Now it's sprung in such a way that the buttonhole lever and the foot are always in the right place to begin sewing. And as I said previously, we have the red lines on here that will help us line it all up. I thought today I'd do a horizontal buttonhole, and I'll show you that if I place the fabric under the foot, the fabric has gone between the 2 layers, which is the crucial bit. So when you lift the foot, lift the lever to lift the foot, only the top part of the buttonhole foot lifts. The lower part stays down against the machine. You place the fabric between the 2 layers, line up the red lines with where you want to start your buttonhole. And I say, it's fine for a vertical buttonhole. Everything fits in here nicely. Likewise, as most horizontal buttonholes start perhaps just about 1/8 of an inch towards the fold, rather than on the centre front line. They ought to start about 1/8 of an inch closer to the fold, because that allows your button to sit nicely onto the centre front line when it's finished. So we've still got plenty of room around this bit for it not to constrict the fabric in any way. The only time I've found that I wouldn't want to use the bottom plate is if I was doing a buttonhole somewhere in the centre of a garment, or a project where obviously this area is going to restrict the fabric and bunch it up. And I've found, that's not very often that happens. So I've already selected stitch 8, I think it is, stitch, which is the rectangle, fairly standard rectangular buttonhole. I can lower the needle so I can see that the buttonhole is going to start in the right place. The foot is down and start stitching. It's often a good idea to snip away the loose thread or the long thread on the top so it doesn't get tangled. Once you've done a few stitches, snip it out of the way. And it finishes with the lock stitch. It is possible to have the machine set so that it then automatically cuts the thread. Personal preference, I'd rather do that myself. I'd rather, depending on the fabric, depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I would like to do something with the ends of the thread. And I actually find it's better when I start a new buttonhole that I've got the longer length of thread at the beginning, just to stop the top thread pulling down and underneath. So I tend to prefer to cut the thread myself. This instance is going to show you I can choose to cut the thread, and there we're complete. And we've got the line that I drew originally to show you where I was going to make the buttonhole, and a very short piece of thread that I can snip off, and likewise on the back. With all the buttonhole settings on the machine, you can alter the stitch length and stitch width. So do a practice buttonhole on your fabric and see if you want to think perhaps you need something wider. Perhaps you need, if you have a coarse fabric with only a few threads, a very low thread count per inch, possibly having a wider zigzag stitch in your buttonhole makes for a stronger buttonhole. So you can alter the width, you can alter the density, the stretch buttonholes, keyhole buttonholes, round-ended buttonholes. So a very, very versatile machine. And when I wanted to upgrade my machine from my Memory Craft 4800, a good quality buttonhole was one of the things I was looking for. And I have to say I haven't been disappointed.